tutorials to paint this jar with the little cutting of a plant with the roots. It's got some interesting highlights here on the jar to give it form and to show that it's shiny and reflective. And I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible. I've got my outline here. I plan on doing this on Yupo paper, which paint lifts very easily from Yupo paper because it's like painting on glass. Here's the outline. Where the yellow marks are, that's where you would put masking fluid if you're using regular watercolor paper. On Yupo, I don't need it because I can just take a damp brush and wipe it up, and I've got my highlight. So I've traced it out onto my Yupo paper, and now I'm going to get started. I've got some paint mixed up here. It's a little neutral tint with some phthalo blue. It's pretty watery. And I'm just going to do the jar, just the outline of the jar and the outline of the lid. And I'm not going to worry about doing too much because I can easily lift on this, and I don't have to worry about these highlights because I can fix that later. I'll take a damp brush and just kind of smear this around. It'll go where it wants to go, and that's okay. That's the awesome part about Yupo paper, is it kind of has a mind of its own, and it's just best to let it do it. Damp brush. This was pretty damp. I'm just going to fill it up with water. Come on down around the sides here. There's going to be a lot of green here in the bottom, but for now, we're going to just add that neutral tint and phthalo blue just on the outside, and then add some water in the center. Damp brush, just kind of smear it around. Look at your reference photo if you see where you need some more darker values. Just drop some in, let it go. That already looks pretty. Now, while this is still wet, I'm going to bring some green in. Because the reference photo, I don't know if that's just like mold or what that is. I think it is. But whatever it is, we are going to add some green at the bottom. Let it mix in with that grayish color. I'm going to add some more water, get it real fluid here. Look how pretty that is. With that light on, you can't really tell. If I turn it off, it's just too dark. You'll see it when it's dry. And this is just some sap green mixed with a little bit of lemon yellow and phthalo green. Just a little. I want it darker here at the bottom, and it's okay that it's just kind of creeping up a little because we want it lighter up there. And then I'm going to add some sap green here, and this is pretty thick because I don't want it to spread too much on the water line here. If I do too much, I can always lift. That's what's so cool about painting on Yupo. Now for the leaves up here, I'm going to start painting them using this sap green. I'll do these later when that's dry. I mixed a little permanent rose with the sap green just for darker values for these leaves, just at the bottom. That looks so cool. And around the rim here, at the lid, there's a little green there as well. Because it's reflecting the green. I could do another, a little bit more of the darker color over here. Oh, that's really dark there. That's okay. It is kind of darker to the side here. There's a little reflection there. I'll take a damp brush and smoosh it around so it's not too stark. water to get it, push it to the side. You can also use a paper towel. I think I need to do that because it looks a little bit too dark over here. I'm just going to lift, see how easy it is to lift. That was a little bit too dark. I'm going to lift up some of that water, then add some more water. And then I think that would be good. Okay, we're going to let this dry. Okay, it's dry. I really like how it dried. You never know quite what it's going to look like because the water does not absorb into the paper. It just sits on top until it dries. It also makes it where that on regular watercolor paper, the water does soak in, so the color ends up being about 10 to 20% lighter once it's dry. But with Yupo, it just sits on top until it dries, so you don't lose that that color. So I'm going to add some darker values here where on the lid here, and then paint the little metal bracket thing. I don't know what that's called, but I'm going to paint that. And I'm doing it with a mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, my usual gray color. To turn this so I can, sounds like I'm washing dishes here. It starts coming together when you start adding these darker values. Let's see, I think we need to add some tiny lines here for the lid. Oops. Remember, if you make a mistake, you can easily clean it up with a damp brush and dab it up. Okay, so for this leaf, I'm going to use, it looks like it's kind of a reddish color. I'm going to do burnt sienna mixed with a little permanent rose. I think that'll give a pretty color there for the leaf veins and part of the branch there. Yeah, I think I'll add a little bit more permanent rose. Yeah, that's it. Good enough. It's a little bit wide there. See how easy that is? Just dab it up. I'm taking this brush, I've rinsed it out, and it's pretty dry. I'm just going to take it and take some of this paint on this vein here, this leaf vein, and just kind of drag some of it out for the little tinier veins in the leaf. I don't want to put a lot of paint there, so I'm just going to use some of the existing. And I lost my line here, the water line. So I've got this sap green mixed with a little neutral tint. It's going to reactivate it a little bit because it dried overnight. And I'm just going to add it back. Clean up this line some. It's so easy to do with Yupo paper. Okay, so for these roots, it looks like it's kind of that same color, kind of a brownish, but very, very tiny. So I'm going to tiny brush and paint that in, but I'm going to do the green first. I think this is a size 1. I'm not sure. This is such an old brush. The lacquer has come off. But it still works. I'm just tracing over the pencil lines, adding a few extra probably. Adding the leaf and some of the green from above the water line. Now I'm using the same color that I used up here, which was the burnt sienna with some permanent rose. I'm going to water it down a bit because I don't want it really dark. Let's see if I can get some real tiny lines in here. This brush may be too big. It's okay if it's a little bigger than what the reference photo is. Okay, this is I guess it's the rubber gasket for the lid, maybe silicone, I'm not sure. So I think for the color for that, I'm going to use some Scarlet Lake. That may be a little bit too bright, but we'll see. Let me mix my colors. Okay, I mixed Scarlet Lake with a little bit of the sap green to get a color that's pretty similar to that gasket. Now to paint it. And just remember, if you make a mistake, it's very easy to fix it. I got a little mess over here. I just wet it and then lift it. This area right here is not red. I painted it there. I'm cleaning it up. See how easy that is? Okay, we're going to let this dry before I do any other things to it. Okay, so this red right here needs to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little neutral tint to my mix, which is Scarlet Lake mixed with sap green. Just get a little darker red here. This may not be it, but we're going to give it a shot. Ooh, that's really dark. But it might work. There's a little highlight right above that. which we will add later when it's completely dry to separate the dark and the light. I might be able to do a little bit now. Nope, needs to dry. Okay, now I'm just going to be fiddling. I'm going to just look at my reference photo and add some grays where I think there needs to be some, using the mix of ultramarine and burnt sienna right here on the edge of the jar. Here there's a little reflection of that little clasp or whatever that thing is. Let's add whatever. Just look at your reference photo and see what needs to be added. This is too much right here, so I've got a damp brush and I'm just going to encourage it to kind of spread around. Now for the metal part of it, there are highlights throughout. So I'm taking my little tiny brush and then wetting it and then dabbing it off. And I'm just going to scrub a little highlights here and there. Just scrub a little. It's easily lift. See how quick that was and easy? Rinse it off and then dab it. You don't really have to scrub, just wipe it a couple of times. So easy to make highlights. Let's see, where else? Got a little outside line there, so easy to clean. That's a highlight. Okay, so for the highlight in the jar, there's some highlights here. I'm not going to do too much over here because it's pretty light. That happened just naturally while it was drying. So I'm going to do some lifting here. And down here. Don't dab too hard because you will disturb the paint. There's a little highlight up here. One along in here. I think I will do a little bit down here. Dry paper towel. think I went too far down here, so I'm just going to add some green, bring some of this back. And when you're layering, be very careful, because if you scrub too much, you're going to be lifting up the layer below. So I'm just going to be very careful. I want a little darker value here at the bottom. Just going to drop in some water so it can just kind of mix and settle however it wants. Looks like there's sediment at the bottom, which there could be. Okay, I'm going to, that's not quite dry yet, I don't think. The red. See if I can make my line here, my highlight. I'm afraid to dab it because I'm afraid I'll bring too much up. And I did okay. I'm just going to do another layer here on the darker value part of it. Okay, I think, what else do I need? Maybe a little more green along in here. I'm just looking at the reference photo and looking where I need to fiddle. I don't want to fiddle too much. Maybe a little light green along in here. If it's too much, take a damp brush and just kind of tickle that edge and it'll kind of spread out. Okay, I think I'm pleased with this. Maybe a little more highlight here on this little bracket, metal bracket thing. This got really light. I really like how the different texture it made when it dried. It just really looks so cool. Very fluid. Okay, so for the background, I'm not going to do much. I'm just going to do a little bit of color here, and then I'm going to wet it and just let it go where it wants to go. And I'm going to use the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue mix. Couldn't think. So I'm just going to do a line. Get the cat hair out of it. And then a damp brush. Let's go tickle that. Let it go up as far as it wants. Being careful, do not touch the green bottle, the jar. Let's add a little more at the bottom. You can dab some up if you don't want it to go up too high. I'm getting really close to this bottle, the jar. I'm just fiddling with it till I get it the way I want. And I think that's it. It's going to come up just a little, but that's okay. Now to do this side. Got to be careful with that bracket there, that little doodad. I don't want to disturb that paint. Damp brush, touch it, tickle that edge. Got too much over here. Take a brush and just clean it up. Just sweeping it off to the side. That works, because that'll be covered by a mat. Okay. I'm going to let this dry and see if there's any other tweaking that I need to make. I'm calling this done. I really like how the texture was, how it just created itself inside the jar. It just looks so cool. I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know if you have any questions about painting on Yupo. It is a lot different. And if you do this on watercolor paper, please tag me because I'd love to see it. Thank you so much for being a subscriber.